Well, it's so good to have all of you with us today. My name is Chris. I'm here with Gunther. And for this series, Summer Feelings, we decided to have a little summer competition to see, who wins. The game is simple. We're going to be, guessing some classic movies. So the question, Gunther, you first have to ask or answer, do you want to be the picker or the guesser?
I mean, Austin set the bar pretty high, not going to lie. I'm going to take the picker because most of the movies last week came out before I was even born, so.
Which means I'm old, so I'll be the guesser.
The rules are simple. When the timer starts, grab a VHS from the box and describe the movie to your teammate. You cannot say the title, any actor or character names, or any locations from the film. Once they guess it, grab another tape and keep going. You have 60 seconds to guess as many movies as possible. Ready? Go.
Oh, it was a book. It's a big guy. There's a, I can't say that. Oh man. I read it in 10th grade.
Incredible Hulk.
No. It was a book. It's a pretty famous book.
Is it a book?
Yes. I'm trying to think, how do I describe it without giving anything away? Not a rat, but
a mouse.
Yes. And then not a woman, but
a man.
Famous book.
A man mouse. Mighty Mouse. Mighty.
Switch it around.
Mouse Mighty. Super Mouse. Super Human Mouse. Mickey Mouse. Minnie Mouse. Mickey Mouse. Donald Duck.
They're done. You're done.
Well, Gunther, here's a good thing. You set the bar low.
Yes. Larry.
Jim.
Bob. I can't remember the other guy's name.
idea.
I don't even know if it's Larry, to be honest.
It is George and Lenny.
Lenny.
George.
Lenny, Larry. It's a
Mice. Mouse. Meese.
Okay,
rabbits.
we'll give it to you. Soft animals.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
They're both soft,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Hamsters.
Yeah.
Guinea pigs. Llamas. Cheese. Different types of cheese. Swiss
Going
cheese.
off somewhere.
Let's go with that answer.
Not where they're at.
I mean, you're doing pretty bad, so we'll give it to you.
Okay.
It's owning a piece of their own land and living on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's where I was getting to, honestly. I mean,
It's better than
yeah.
cheese.
Right.
Well, Gunther, I have to say, Austin set the bar really high. You possibly set the bar in the lower direction,
Yeah.
but
That's a nice way to put it.
there's still a long series. You never know. Someone could beat the lowness of your bar. Someone could, but you just never know. You never know. But here's what I do know. God's put an incredible message on your heart to share with everyone. So why don't you all give Gunther a warm TCC welcome.
Well, hey, y'all, I'm Gunther, and I lead our Clearfield campus. And I am just so excited to be bringing you the second part of our series, Summer Feelings, because who doesn't love talking about their feelings? No, seriously, I am so excited. And I was so excited when Chris said that we were going to be talking about feelings and tying them to Psalms this summer. And I remember saying something, and I was like, yeah, I want to talk about this. And everybody just kind of looked at me, and I was like, what? I'm like, Gunther, it's summer. We're going to talk about happy feelings. I was like, oh, okay. I know exactly what I want to talk about. So today, we're going to talk about rejection. Look, don't let the Carhartt pants and the Hawaiian shirt fool you. I am still the most punk rock and emo one on staff. Okay, I still get down with my pop punk. I still get down with my alternative because it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle. Okay, Mom? No, seriously. Music has really shaped my life. And before the pop punk and before the alternative, there was this band that was just so amazing to me. I grew up listening to them. They were all of the sensation on Disney Channel. And I'm a little bit nervous to tell you who they were because I'm a little bit afraid of being judged. But this is a safe space, and we're not going to judge me for who I like to listen to growing up. Okay, that band that I loved so much, and still to this day I actually do love, is the Jonas Brothers. The Jonas Brothers that were all the sensation on Disney Channel. And it's really fun because my son, Emery, he's 10 years old, and he loves the Jonas Brothers, so we get to just enjoy that together. And if you don't know the Jonas Brothers, well, let me tell you a little bit about them. Well, we got Joe. We got Joe in the middle. Joe's also the middle brother. He was the sensitive one. He was the one that straightened his hair and did that hair flick thing all the time. And he was the front man. And Kevin on the left, he was the oldest brother, and I don't know that anybody knows what he really did. But Nick, the youngest brother, he was the youngest one who wrote all the songs, and he also led the band from the shadows. And if you remember the Jonas Brothers, you remember the epic question. Which Jonas brother was the cutest? So we're going to have a poll right now. I just want you to think about which Jonas brother was the cutest. Was it Joe, the sensitive one that did the hair flick thing? Was it Kevin who, I still don't know what he did. Nick, was it Nick, the curly-headed one who wrote all the songs? Which one was it? Well, the polls are in, and it was 100% Nick. Yeah, I would have to agree with all of you in that it was 100% Nick. And if you disagree with that, well, then you're just wrong. And I'm not just saying that Nick was the cutest because people said when I was growing up that I looked like him. That's not why. I promise. That's not why. Okay? It was because he was the youngest. Okay? He was my age. He was my hero. He wrote all the songs. He led the band from the background. He dated Miley Cyrus. Okay? And if you're a guy and you know who Hannah Montana is, and you tell me you don't or didn't have a crush on Hannah Montana, I'm going to call you a liar. Nick was the one that even when the band split up, he was the one that continued on in the music industry and ended up having an acting career. And when we think about Nick Jonas today, well, he's this person who reached this pivotal moment in music industry. But the road to that stage was actually paved with a ton of rejection. You see, when the Jonas Brothers were younger, Nick was probably about 12, 13 years old. Their father, Kevin Sr., was a pastor at a church in New Jersey. And the church was their safety net. It was their community. It was everything that they held tight. And one day, that net broke and it all came spilling out. You see, there was a family in that church that didn't like the leadership of Kevin Sr. And so they made it their mission to just push him out. They didn't like that the Jonas Brothers were leading worship on Sunday and also pursuing a secular musical career. Well, eventually that family got what they wanted, and Kevin Sr. was forced to resign. Now, the way that this church was set up is that there was a parsonage, and what that is it's a house either connected to the church or right next to the church that the church owns, and the pastor and his family live there while he pastors the church. So when Kevin Sr. lost his job, the Jonas family lost their home. In an interview, Nick Jonas actually says that he felt so betrayed by the very people in the very institution who were supposed to show the love of God. Now, they did eventually find a small home that they could rent while they still pursued their music career. But they lost their home, and that wasn't enough. You see, Nick's physical body started to fail him. They were playing these shows at 8 o'clock in the morning, doing this tour, doing all of these assemblies at 8 o'clock in the morning at different schools. And he started to have this unquenchable thirst, and he started to lose weight rapidly. Now, they thought, because he was young, that maybe he was just being a little overworked, maybe it was some type of growth spurt. But at 13 years old, Nick Jonas was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So his church, rejected him. His body started rejecting him. And if that wasn't enough, their debut album, It's About Time, in 2006, it failed to meet the expectations, and Columbia Records dropped them, which left the Jonas family hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Rejected by his church family, his body starts failing him, and rejected by the record company. About 14, 15 years old, I can't imagine being in his shoes, feeling that much rejection at such a young age. And we don't have a whole lot of information about Nick Jonas's faith journey from then until now, but we do have a little bit within the past year. And we also have these songs that he's written. We have these songs that he's crying out to God. And I remember it was about November last year, my wife and I heard this song called Hope by Nick Jonas. And I remember telling her that I am so excited. Do you hear the words in this song? Nick Jonas is coming back to God. I'm so excited. My hero, my childhood hero is coming back to God. He was the one who led worship. He was the one who had the purity ring. He was, my hero is coming back to God. And I was so excited. And what we hear is this bleeding heart from Nick Jonas, where he writes and he sings. He says, back when I was young, my faith was on fire. In my Sunday best, singing with my chest, leading worship in his church. And now all that's left is a lifelong test. It makes you wonder if that lifelong test wasn't a test of rejection. And I can't seem to find my way. It says changing, Lord. It says Lord because he knows who God is and he's still reaching. Lord, I've been going through changes. And my faith's still strong, but it won't last long if I don't hear from you someday soon. Nick Jonas' story resonates with me. It resonates with us because it touches on this universal nerve, this tension of rejection. Rejection is this pain that we feel when an employer looks us over. Or maybe a spouse walks out on us. Maybe a friend stabs us in the back. And I think what we do is we have these safety nets. We have these safety nets that hold all of our valuables. It holds our careers, our communities, our circles, everything that is valuable to us. And sometimes that net just rips. And we end up in this free fall. We end up in this free fall of rejection. And then rejection ends up whispering these lies. Ends up whispering these lies that say, you're worthless. Ends up whispering these lies that says, you're not enough. Ends up whispering the lie that you're alone. And ultimately, we come to this devastating question. Has God rejected me too? When the bank account is empty, when the church rejects you, when your body fails, God, have you rejected me too? Do we look up at God and say, God, where are you? Do we put it in a song like Nick Jonas did and say, my faith won't last long. I don't hear from you someday soon. And if you're sitting there feeling rejected or abandoned by God, I just want you to know that you're in good company. You see, because thousands of years before Nick Jonas took the stage and sang that my faith won't last long if I don't hear from you soon, King David wrote a psalm. He wrote Psalm 22. And the crazy part is that, David knew who God was. Nick Jonas knew who God was. And maybe that's why the feeling of silence felt so much deeper. You see, Psalm 22, written by David, is a cry of someone who feels far from God. So I want to take a look at Psalm 22, starting in verse 1. And in my opinion, this is just one of the most heart-wrenching opening lines in Scripture. It says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish. And I want to point out that David's still reaching. He still says, my God. He's still reaching for God. He's still reaching in the pain and the chaos. He's still reaching. Just like Nick Jonas when he says, Lord, I've been going through changes. Still reaching. Some of us are here today, even doing the same thing. We're coming to church every Sunday. We're praying nonstop. We're raising our hands when we worship. And internally, we're still asking a question. God, where are you? God, where are you? David continues in verse 2. He says, my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer by night. But I find no rest. This isn't just a bad day. This is spiritual exhaustion. And suddenly it sounds a lot like Nick Jonas' story. You know, Nick Jonas lost his church family, $100,000 in credit card debt. His body starts failing him. Ultimately, David and Nick Jonas are asking the same question. God, are you still there? Are you still there? And then David starts doing this thing that I think a lot of us end up doing in a time of feeling rejected, in a time of suffering. He starts comparing his story to someone else's. It says in verse 3, yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In you our ancestors put their trust. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried out and they were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. And it makes me wonder, do we do this sometimes? You know what I mean? Do we do this sometimes? We're crying out, we're praying to God. We're praying for healing, but we see someone else get the healing. We're asking God for a miracle, but somebody else gets the miracle. We see somebody else get their relationship restored, but our marriage is still in shambles. We see someone else get freedom from depression, but we can't even get out of bed. We see that someone else hears so clearly from God, and we feel so forgotten. And then David, he just continues to spiral from there. In verse 6, he says, but I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. That right there, that's the language of rejection. David isn't just feeling attacked. David is feeling worthless. And that's what rejection does. It doesn't just wound your circumstances, it attacks your identity. You feel that rejection when a spouse walks out or when a coach overlooks you. And when you feel that rejection, eventually that rejection turns to identity. It turns to identity. And we won't say things like, I'm just a worm, but we'll say things like, they all hate me. We'll say things like, I'm unwanted. We'll say things like, I'm not enough. We'll say things like, I'm broken. I must not matter. And David continues in verses 7 and 8, and he says, all who see me mock me. They hurl their insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. And now this is just brutal. People are using the suffering that David's going through, trying to use it as evidence that God has forsaken him. It just makes me wonder, have you ever been there? Have you ever asked those types of questions? They're saying to David, hey David, if God really loved you, you wouldn't be suffering. I know I've asked myself these questions. If you loved me, God, why am I anxious? If God loved me, well, why did they leave? If God loved me, well, then why am I still struggling? Why am I still struggling? In verses 9 through 13, well, David just continues to ask God for help. And then the psalm shifts, and we see this crystal clear picture of this prophetic writing of Jesus on the cross. In verses 14 through 18, it says, I am poured out like water, and all of my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax, and it is melted within me. My mouth is dried up like potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me. A pack of villains encircle me. They pierce my hands and my feet. All my bones are on display, and people stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. This is a picture of Jesus. You see, David wrote this many, many years before the crucifixion ever even existed. But the pierced hands and feet, the thirst, the public shame, the mocking, the gambling for his clothes, this is Jesus. And what's interesting is when we take a look at the parallel of Jesus actually on the cross. In Matthew 27:46, it says, about 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me? And if you're like me, you're wondering, well, why did Jesus say this? And there's different theologians that believe different things. One of them is that he was pointing to Psalm 22, that the people around would have known that it was that what Psalm 22 was. And as we're about to find out, Psalm 22 ends in victory. So Jesus was just saying, hey, remember Psalm 22, remember Psalm 22. Some theologians just say that it was just the human side of him. But the bottom line, what I want you to know and what I want you to understand is that sin missing the mark, falling short, the thing that separates us from God, sin is what gives God every right to reject us. Well, God sent his son Jesus that took that sin upon himself to pay a debt that we could never pay ourselves, just so we could be in relationship with him. So rejection? That's the complete opposite of rejection. Sin, the very thing that separates us from God. And God sends his son to pay a debt that we can never pay ourselves, to take our sin upon himself, just so that we can be in relationship with him. To know that and think that God would ever abandon us is crazy. Because God doesn't reject us, ever. And we might feel abandoned, we might feel rejected by God. And that's real. Your feelings are real. But they're not full truth. The cross proves that God will never walk away from us, that he wants relationship with us so bad. Nick Jonas thought that, well, losing his church meant that he was losing God. But losing people doesn't mean losing God. The truth is that just because people rejected you does not mean that God rejects you. Just because people walked away doesn't mean that God's ever going to walk away. Just because it feels silent doesn't mean that God has abandoned you. You see, because Psalm 22, it ends in victory. And I just want to take a look at verse 24. It says, for he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. David felt abandoned by God. But he wasn't abandoned by God. Nick Jonas, he felt abandoned by God, but he wasn't abandoned by God. We sometimes feel rejected and abandoned by God, but we are not rejected or abandoned by God. You see, because rejection is not the end of the story. Silence is not the end of the story. The cross was not the end of the story. David's suffering was not the end of the story because God was still writing. And God is still writing today. And knowing that God is still writing our story today helps us to know the truth. That when the world rejects you, you have a choice. We all have a choice. We can choose in that rejection because the world will reject us. People will reject us. We have a choice. We can believe the enemy. We can believe the lies that rejection tells us that we're worthless and that we're not enough. Or we can take a look at the cross. We can take a look at the cross and remember that Jesus took on that sin that would separate us from God so that we could be in relationship with him. And that's the truth. And I believe that Nick Jonas came to this conclusion. I believe that he came to this conclusion because just recently he wrote this song with Brandon Lake. Brandon Lake, one of the Christian artists in the top charts right now. He wrote this song called The Author. He wrote this song called The Author where he sings his heart out and talks about his past. And he says that he asks the question, am I just a poor preacher's prodigal son? A troubled child running wild? Chasing the glory instead of the one? And then he realizes how God sees him. And he says, I see trauma and I see worthless. You see something you can work with. I've seen ashes turn to beauty. I've seen panic turn to power. And when you put your faith and trust in Jesus, this is what God does. He takes the rejection and he turns it into something beautiful. He takes the pain, he takes the suffering, and he uses it for his glory. And then Nick Jonas, he comes to this conclusion of faith. And he sings, so who am I? Who am I to question the pen in the hands of the author? And you might be here today. You might be sitting there feeling abandoned. You might be feeling rejected from God. But you're not. And the cross proves that. God is still God and God is still good and he's still writing your story. He's still writing your story. In a few moments, we're going to hear this song, The Author. And as we listen to these words and sing these words, I want you to do a few things. I want you to take your right to control the narrative. I want you to let go of the bitterness of this past hurt and this past rejection. I want you to let it go. And I want you to declare with confidence these words. That I'm ink in the pen in the hands of the author. And let him continue to write your story. Let's pray. God, we thank you so much that you are an awesome and amazing God. We thank you for this example that when we're feeling abandoned, when we're feeling rejected, that we can come to you with those feelings and we can just be raw with you. And we can tell you, hey, I'm feeling far away. God, I thank you for the cross. I thank you for your son. I thank you for this example so that we know that you want relationship with us so much and you would never, ever reject us or abandon us. I thank you that you are the ultimate author, continuing to write our story, even when it feels messy for us. God, I just thank you. I praise you. Give you all honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.